Everybody. Welcome to the Tall Poppy Revolution Radio, your sometimes weekly live show where we talk about and with executive and C suite women leaders who dare to stand tall and think big. So, like a tall poppy, right? With its head above other tall poppies, high achieving women risk a lot by standing out. And so, our revolution is about bringing together tall poppies out of the isolation of being the only, the one of a few, to explore groundbreaking strategies and navigate the unique challenges of being a high achiever in a world that's just catching up. All right, and we're going to be redefining success on our own terms along the way. So I'm so excited to have my guest here today, Emily Carlson. She is an award winning author. She's the host of the podcast Powered by Authenticity. She's been a leader in the tech industry, and I can't wait to dive into our conversation today. Emily and I had a lot of fun talking about doing this together. We met recently on a networking group online and knew we had some things in common with regards to authenticity, leadership, leading authentically, and especially working with women leaders. So, welcome, Emily. I'm delighted to have you today.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Emily, I'd love to just sort of kick us off right off the top by talking about your podcast, Powered by Authenticity, and how it really champions this theme of authenticity, being your true self, and bringing that to bear in leadership. And so I'm curious if you could share with us how did you come about doing that particular podcast topic, and how did this become a central theme in your own journey?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. And I came up with the podcast name through an exercise of finding out what meant the most to me as a leader, and those things are being empowered and being authentic. I think especially women leaders often think they have to follow a certain set of rules or a certain way to carry themselves. Like often are that often tend to mirror what men are doing in the workforce. And we are true, unique beings. And I think, being unique and authentic to ourselves every day and the core values and principles we bring to leadership really help to change the way that females can run organizations and, run their lives, really. So the name itself came up just through really realizing what my core metrics were and what made me tick every morning when I got out of bed. And that was, being empowered by being an authentic leader. And when I go into organizations and I have the opportunity to lead, I like to lead by example by showing my authentic self in every circumstance that you may face. It's sometimes very easy to like I said, try to mirror what others are doing, but by staying true to yourself and being authentic in the way that you handle situations, you will get the best outcome. So
Mm.
it's really sticking to yourself.
Mhm.
And for me, those were some of the key things and themes that I found across my career, and things that I know that when I go into a boardroom, help me get through every leadership situation that I face.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're continuing to model that by talking about it on the podcast. That I
Yeah.
love that idea of, being powered by your own authenticity and really tapping into and living by your values, which is something that I definitely work with my clients and find with myself and with them that really knowing what our values are and what's really driving the boat. It's not really a great, maybe not the best analogy. Driving the bus, really leading us because our own self leadership gets driven by that anyway. We might as well bring that to the surface and live through that. So I love that idea of being powered by authenticity and what you shared about, especially I think that is true for women leaders that we've learned to grow, to lead, to work in a world that historically has been created by and for and dominated by men and male style leadership. And we're seeing a lot of changes happening, of course, over time as more women come into positions of leadership, we're seeing some of that change. And there's lots of I now evidence, especially since the pandemic, there's a lot of desire to see that authenticity in others and to work for authentic leaders, people who are being true to themselves. So this theme, you and I are jamming on this, and and I
Yeah.
think really this is an area where I see a lot of value, and I see my clients respect finding a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about something that you do that I find uh, again really modeling it, because I
Mhm.
think you're being very brave with your podcast. One of the things Emily does that I find really fascinating is truly living by example and being transparent, is she shows her own coaching sessions with her coach on her podcast. So I've listened to a few of those, and they're very revealing and topical.
Mhm.
For example, the one on boundaries. And
Mhm.
so I'm curious about this, Emily. What led you to share your own and reveal, be the guinea pig and show the world what some of the things were that you were going through, and have your coach work with you on that?
Yeah, the big thing is if I'm going through it, somebody else is probably going through it at the
Mm,
same time. And I think by being vulnerable and showing kind of what I'm going through and what I may need help getting, out of a situation, and working through that with a coach and sharing that, shows that if you're in the middle of something, if you're in a season, if you're experiencing a situation at work that you aren't quite sure how to get out of, by just having somebody available to you to talk through it, you'll find that one, it's probably not as bad as you think it is. We tend to, in our own minds, make sometimes things get worse, right?
mm,
And so I wanna share those conversations to show it may not be as bad as you think it is. There are tools, there are resources to be able to, connect to, to be able to understand how to get through those situations, and part of it is just the joy of talking,
mm,
bringing forward the fact that these types of transparent conversations that I'm having with a coach that's helping me get to, through a 6 week, and, it was part of it was called the 6 week shred is the one that I've been sharing most recently, and you think about that and what are the things that we need to shred away for
mm,
ourselves to be more, successful, in the workplace, and boundaries that, the
mm,
one that you mentioned there, that's huge, putting up those boundaries. And, if I look at women in the workplace, we're so often to just say yes.
mhm,
We already have a full plate, and it's okay to say no. I'm already at 100% utilization. I can't fit something more in, but that's not our first response. Our first
true.
response is, "Yes, I will do that," because we feel like we have to prove ourselves against the male counterparts. And
Mm,
I see that in tech still to this day because tech is still so underrepresented with women.
mm,
Um, so for me, I love the fact that I can share some of those conversations in ways that I'm trying to break
mm,
through, things that come up every day. And we had a it was funny. I had a lack of a moment of confidence, and we talked very transparently about that
mm,
in a live coaching session. And we've gotten some amazing feedback about how I feel that way sometimes too. Thank you
right.
for bringing this forward. And if we are going to make changes, we have to be willing
Mm,
to share and talk. And so I love it. I have not kept anything at bay. And as a matter of fact, every single session's been recorded live. I post then the content out on Spotify from an
wow.
audio perspective. It does not get edited. We have one more to go, and I'm looking forward to that. So I just think that by showing others and being vulnerable, hopefully they'll have the same
Mm,
understanding and courage that when they're facing a situation to reach out and to talk to somebody, or just
mhm.
to manage through it and know where tools, and use those podcasting episodes as a resource.
I love that. There's so many juicy things in what you just said, and I wanted to come back and highlight a couple of those. And if Emily knew I was going to ask her a subsequent question about, have you ever held anything back from these live episodes with your coach? And so she's already answered no,
Yeah, no.
because they're all recorded live and shared live. I mean, how brave to be willing to be vulnerable like that out there in the world. And I love what you said about the one of your motivations in doing that is that if you're sharing this, someone else will see themselves and go, "Oh, wow, that's just like me," or
Yep,
"I've had that too." And I think this is so key for women, and especially women leaders, again, putting our heads up above the crowd. We're very vulnerable. We're taking a lot of risks. And to know that someone else is either ahead of us and has been there too, or alongside us and has had that experience, it's so critical because it's different than what we might hear
yep,
elsewhere. So I like to highlight that because that's so key to find yourself in some kind of community, which is really what this revolution, this tall poppy revolution is about, is taking women out of the isolation of thinking they're the only one that has experienced that or not feeling the kind of support that
yeah,
they might otherwise have if we find others who have been through something similar, or we can look to others, which includes the coach, right? And it
yep.
includes that ability to reach out and have conversations. Mostly confidential, except when they're being broadcast on a live stream. But confidential or conversations with someone who's
Yeah,
objective to your situation, your life, doesn't is not invested in your workplace
yep,
per se. And I think that's the richness is why I always have a coach and why when my clients say, well, yeah, I need this and I want to meet with you on a regular basis because I need that sounding board,
yep,
especially higher up the ladders. We need the sounding boards that
mhm.
aren't invested, particularly that we have those objective sounding boards. So I love what you said there. There was something else, but I think it'll float back as we continue our conversation.
And
Um,
the other thing I just wanted to add to that is, you know, finding a coach isn't easy, and there's a lot of individuals who have very specific focused coaching, so find those who I'm very fortunate that I found Crystal or in this past few weeks, and she's not the first coach that I've
mm,
worked with, but she is one, and hats off to all of the coaches out there that aren't afraid to also
mm,
challenge as you go through the process.
yeah.
Probably the worst thing you can do is find a coach that just says, "Oh, yes, you're right," in every situation because you need somebody to be that
Mhm.
challenger of your viewpoint. So,
Right.
that I've I'm open for, sharing
Yeah.
all of that with others because I feel so strongly that that coach and mentor relationship, it doesn't always have to be, a warm hug, right? It can be
Yeah.
a tough conversation, a straight in the eye conversation. You're probably
Mhm.
gonna get a hug at the end anyways, but, just making sure that are working through and,
Yeah.
have somebody who's not afraid to challenge you.
Absolutely. And I often say that, we can only see what we can see. I mean, I
Mhm.
can't see anything behind my hands right now because that's in my peripheral vision. It's behind my head.
Yep,
Our eyes are looking forward most of the time. Sometimes we're looking backwards, but even when we're looking backwards in our lives, we're still looking here. We're
yep,
not seeing the whole picture.
yep,
And one of the things I think we can all gain by working with a coach is having somebody who can share with us what's going on in that big picture. And sometimes that's outside of our peripheral vision
yep,
is something that we're really good at but we can't see. Other times it's something like as you were saying, it's we're not ready yet or we haven't faced
yep,
something, and working with a coach can really help with that to face it square on, to identify where are the gaps that are between you and where you want to go
yep.
next, or even identifying those next steps. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So kudos, love this, and I want to put a brief plug in here now that we're kind of at the halfway point. That I'm also going to be on Emily's podcast coming up
Yeah.
next month in January, where we're going to continue our conversation, kind of part two around authenticity and whatever else Emily has to throw at me because it will be live too. So join us January 9th. Put a pin on your calendar. January 9th, 2025 at 3 p.m. Pacific. And we'll be sure to share out the link in the show notes for today's episode. So I'm really looking forward to that, Emily. I know you're going to have some surprises for me.
We try.
Um, Emily, I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about coming to different crossroads. I know that you made a transition from your 30 plus career in tech and then into podcasting, and I know there's some inspiring pieces around that. This is like, as you say, others
Mhm.
are going through this too, and many leaders, myself included, have found themselves at different crossroads in their careers, and looking to perhaps make a change. Could even be because of the issue around boundaries, or having said
Mhm.
yes to something that actually wasn't a really good fit,
Yep.
or looking for something new that will be an even better fit, more aligned, as I like to say. And so I wonder if you can share a little bit about that, and then also what advice you have for staying true to yourself while taking those risks.
Yeah, I loved my last C-suite job where I worked for somebody else. I gave my all. I gave my all for 7 years, just over 7 years, and came back from a 2-week vacation that I actually worked all of, only to be part of a reduction in force and
Mm,
laid off from a job that I loved. And there is a grief phase that is so large when it comes to losing, a
mhm,
job. So many different, pieces that you just feel, right? And so I was at this point where I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I knew though that I ran their podcast, and I knew that podcasting time was one of the best hours of my week every week with
mm,
that organization. And I also felt like I had a voice where I finally had found my ability to talk about uncomfortable things like
mhm,
what it's like to be the only female leader in the room. Um, so that's when I went through the exercise and I said, "You know what? I what do I have to lose? I'm
mm,
going to just I'm gonna start a podcast." And I'll give a plug out to my producer, who is also my son, who said, "Mom, I am here to help, and help me figure out some of the things that you just don't think about when you think about podcasting." But it's scary. You don't know what you're going to do, and I think at that point
mm,
in time, you're so fast to try to respond and react to the situation that you're in, but that's actually the time to stop.
mm,
I found I got the most clarity when my husband looked at me one day and just said, "Would you slow down? You're gonna be okay." And
mm,
I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go breathe." And when I did that, I thought about, okay, what truly does bring me joy? And that was that podcast. And,
mm,
so I decided to rip the Band-Aid off. And at the time I was like, who's gonna want to come talk on my podcast? But I found some amazing people who share courage and who want to be a part of the conversation, whose voices matter, like
mhm,
yourself. We met as part of a networking opportunity. So I guess, when you're faced with that situation and
mm,
you're grieving and that's the worst possible time to take on too much, right? You need to take a pause, let your emotions be felt, and then think about what brings you joy. What
mhm,
aligns to where you want to go. Is this the right time to transition to a different phase of
mm,
how you produce income? It's so my advice is to pause, to reflect, figure out what brings you joy, and then from there start to decide what avenues you could take.
mm.
I say the word tech, and honestly, tech is so huge.
Yeah.
Podcasting is tech, right? There's
Mhm.
so much technology
What isn't
behind
tech these days,
what
right?
is tech. So, d and also don't be afraid to define your own next role.
Yeah.
I think we have to do away with writing job descriptions that fit a general person and develop our own job descriptions. Write down what's going to bring you joy and then go find it. Go find people on LinkedIn who do something similar or a portion of it and go talk to them.
Mm,
What and everybody, it's so funny, reach out to a stranger. They're going to say yes to spend 5 minutes with you, buy them a virtual coffee. We have so many different options now. I think it's just connect with others, see what they're doing, see, how talk about this role that you've generated. So I think it's write your own job description, find what brings you joy, go ahead and grieve, those
mm,
moments are terrible. You're gonna get through it, and use myself as a resource, reach out on LinkedIn, and, I'm happy to help people through these pivoting times because it's truly can be jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
moment. I mean, I love all the things that you've shared and the importance of letting ourselves grieve through that process and actually
Mhm.
move through it. And I love that your family, your husband and your son, support you so well. I mean, and this is the key part, as well as knowing that we have certain
Yep.
supports, especially as we're taking on the big things in life and
Yep.
up on the taller levels of the rarefied air that we go as tall poppies, and the bigger we go, the different things that are up there. But sometimes when we get our heads above the clouds, it can feel really great because
Yep.
it's smooth sailing up there. But to get up there, we often need that extra lift
Yep.
of having others in our corner. So I think that's so important. Emily, and I love that you shared some key tips right here for being able to navigate and some key questions to ask oneself to navigate those transitions. And I love create your own job description. I think that's fantastic, and it's a wonderful way of taking agency and ownership over one's own career, professional life, whatever that looks to you, whether you're employed as an executive or C-suite, or you're running your own business. It's still, what is it that aligns with who you are authentically, your values, and everything that it makes you unique. One of the things I love to use with clients are different assessments, and a tool that I'm currently using a lot with clients and finding even greater depth in this area is human design and identifying what is your blueprint for leadership. What is your blueprint? And really, it is a blueprint for life and leadership that helps to uncover a lot of these ideas that we're talking about today.
Mhm.
Emily, your questions about what brings you joy, we can find that in the blueprint as well. That helps identify what can be some potential directions and where to lean in to feel the most aligned. So making those choices with that new potential role based on what you've identified can be really helpful when we're looking to different ways of identifying that. And so, Emily, I'm curious, what types of other things do you use with clients or with yourself that help to identify these key pieces? Are there anything specific that you love to jam with?
Yeah, it's funny. I had never even done strength. I had done some like Myers-Briggs things and things like that, but I'd never done Strength Finder. So I actually did. I took the questionnaire and then sent it to somebody, and we did that live on my
Mm,
podcast. And it was interesting to see how that equated to my past, and how I could use that tool moving forward. My big thing is, I have to say I probably and I wanna dig into the human design
mm,
when we get back together. I really
yeah.
do. I was born on a Monday, so I'm wondering if there's any
Mm.
any feedback we could on that, but, I would like to dig into that when we reconnect again. For me, I don't necessarily, when I'm working with individuals, I have to say the biggest thing I do is I just get to know them. It's so funny because my
Mhm.
husband's like, "All you do is talk all day." And I'm like, "I do because that's how I get to know people." And I feel like if you have even an open conversation with somebody and get to hear little things like how much are they talking about their family? Okay,
Mm,
this is where they're rooted. So handle situations with them this way, or how they handle, you know, team member interactions. Is it, more authoritative? Is it more buddy? And so for me, when I'm working with my clients, it's getting to know them at that personal
mm,
level.
mhm,
And just for myself and what makes me tick, like I said, I do want to dig into the human design. So I'm very interested in that. But just having seen like strength finders and being a developer, which equated to me offering a job to a waitress at an Outback Steakhouse in Pensacola one time because we connected on a different level. So, I don't know if that was a great answer to your,
mm.
question, but it's, I find that I get so connected to the people
Yeah,
element of the work that I do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And Strength Finders is great. I've used Strength Finders, the Myers Briggs,
Yep.
all kinds of different tools that
Yep.
help me as a coach support my clients, and also
Yep.
helps my clients to see themselves in a new and different way.
Yep.
And I'm delighted. We're going to get together and do human design. And just for those of you who are like, "What is human design?" What I love about human design is, unlike the other assessments that are all based on self-report, you choose your preferences. You choose between one or two or more choices that help to identify and reveal something about yourself. With human design, there is no choosing. It's just one thing, one moment in time,
Love that.
where we're looking for your birth date, time, and place of birth. And so with Emily, we weren't able to do that today because she doesn't know exactly what time of day she was born. And
Okay.
so we've got to do some digging to see which of the profiles that show up on that particular day will are the most resonant with her. So it's a little bit more tricky to do, but for most of us, if we have that, we can identify right away what your blueprint is. And like an architectural blueprint, there are lots of layers and floors and different, but we have a picture. We have a picture
I love that.
of your architecture, if you like, that we can then explore. And it's another way of revealing things about oneself, looking back and looking forward, because as a blueprint, it gives us it's kind of putting two metaphors or analogies together, if you like. It offers a roadmap, as one is exploring and identifying the full authentic self, the full true self. So you can tell I'm a bit excited about this
Love
kind of
that.
work. What I'm hearing from my clients, I was just on a call the other day with one of them to dig a little bit deeper into her human design, and she has said repeatedly, "Oh my God, I feel so seen. I
Oh,
feel so
amazing.
seen. I recognize myself, and wow, I knew that about myself, but I didn't know it." Those
That's
kinds of things.
powerful. Yeah, that's
Yeah, so
powerful.
it's really quite interesting, and she's in the middle of a pivot where she's looking to make a change, in one of those situations where you talked about where the suit isn't quite fitting. She's in a
Yep.
role, very male-dominated industry, in role where she's, kind of pushing up against the edges and wondering how to move forward next. And so,
Yeah.
looking at her design, we can start to talk about, well, where might be some areas to look for? When we talked earlier about values, is knowing those pieces, just like knowing the pieces of the puzzle in human design, can help us make choices and decisions. And there's even a decision making style that's revealed in your blueprint that is unique to you. There's others people will have that similar type of decision making style, but it actually reveals that for many of us, that the way we're being asked to make decisions actually doesn't quite fit with how is the best way for us to make decisions. So I'm just going to drop that pin and let it sit there and see if
Yeah.
if that intrigues anybody out there and you'd like to know more. We can go ahead and get you a copy of your human design blueprint when you book a strategy call with me that helps to identify your career clarity for 2025, and
Amazing.
we can walk through those different types of things. So I'll drop a link in the show notes for that. And I also, Emily, how can people stay in touch with you? And if you have something you'd like to extend to our audience and the way they can be connected with you, please let us know, and we'll include that in
Yeah.
the show notes as well.
Yeah, I can be contacted via poweredbyauthenticity.com. Also, feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. I love new connections and networking. The podcast is on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. And then my book released just over a week ago, and you can find that on Amazon. It's Evolution of Leadership in STEM. Women catalyzing change, and would love the support there. It's a powerful message from key female leaders in the STEM career field. So excited,
Wonderful.
and please reach out. Love to chat.
Well, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations on your book
Thank
release, and
you.
we'll be sure to include that in the show notes as well. Well, thank you everyone who's joined us here on the Tall Poppy Revolution radio show. And you can find us on YouTube. Please go ahead and link in to subscribe. There's also a LinkedIn newsletter where you can find every time we go live or have an episode, we post it there. So do stay in touch, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and it'll let you know when we're going live. And until next time, we'll be back in the new year with another guest and more episodes of the Tall Poppy Revolution radio show. Please join me on Emily's podcast, Powered by Authenticity, January 9th at 3 p.m. Pacific. And have a wonderful holiday and new year. And we'll see you all in 2025.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.